In this tutorial, I want to show you how to draw the beds and nightstands. I'm going to start with the king size bed, and then I'll draw the twin size bed. I'm going to zoom into the king size bed because that has the dimensions on it that I want to be using. And I'm going to assume that 0, 0 is anywhere in this lower left-hand corner. Because we're going to be close to it, I don't want to give the exact location because I may start at one spot and move to another, but as long as it's in this vicinity, everything's going to be okay. So I'll go ahead and minimize this and I'll go start a new file. So when I come up here, I'll click on the drop down where it says new. And in a previous tutorial, I created the HWC drawing template, but you can watch that and use the HWC template. Otherwise, I'll go ahead and start with the AutoCAD template. And then from here, what I'd like to do first is format my units. Architectural, precision is 1/32. The angle type is decimal degrees. The precision is 0.00. I go ahead and click OK. Next up is saving the drawing as. So save as. And it's taking me into the template folder, but make sure that you go to your drive, wherever it is that you are keeping your files. And I'll just stop here for now and give it the appropriate name. So I'm just going to give it a name so I don't forget it, but make sure that you follow the instructions that you are given so that you have the appropriate name. And I'll go ahead and save it. Haha, I don't have the permission. So 1 second, I can try that again. I'll try going into my drive. I'll try this folder. And I'll go ahead and save. I can now begin to draw. I'm going to zoom out a bit, and I'm also going to turn off the grid. It's a personal preference. And then I'm going to look at the overall dimensions of the bed. And it says that the mattress size is 6'8" by 6'4". And I think that's a good place to start. So I will go back to my AutoCAD drawing and begin. So I'll go ahead and start with a line, and I'm just going to type L, enter. Now I'm going to start at 0, 0, enter. I'm going to turn ortho on, and the length here is going to be 6 feet 4, and I enter. It falls off the screen, and that's okay. I'll just enter, and then I'll zoom out so I can see the whole line and then pan it down. And at this point, I can either draw a couple of lines. I can start with a line here, L, enter from this endpoint, take it up 6'8", and enter. I can draw the other line there as well, or let me undo this. I could also offset, so I can type O for offset, and the distance is 6'8", enter. And I can offset this line up in that direction and enter. And by the way, my object snaps right now, my running object snaps, you can see them, endpoint, midpoint, intersection, extension. I also have object snap tracking turned on, and of course I just turned ortho on. So now I can go ahead and draw the lines. L, enter, from one endpoint to another. I enter, and then I enter again to continue with the line command from here, one endpoint to the other, and enter. And then I'll come over here to measure, and I'll just do a quick measure to make sure that it is the correct dimension. 6'4" by 6'8", and that's where I want to be. So I'll tap the escape key and I can continue. And at this point, what I'll do is focus on the bottom portion of the bed, and that's a 2-inch offset on the line there, and then a 1-inch offset on either side here. So I'll put that in as part of the frame of the bed, not the mattress. So I'm going to come down here, and I'm going to offset. So I'll type O, enter, and it's going to be 2, enter. And I select this line, offset it down 2 inches. And then if I want to, I'm going to pan right over here. I'm going to zoom in. I'm going to select this line and offset it out to the right, but instead of 2 inches, I'll make that 1, and then I'll enter. And then I can do the same thing on the other side. I can take this line, offset it to the left, and I'll type 1 and enter. And then I will tap the escape key so I can continue. And now it's a matter of using other editing commands. So I'm going to start with fillet at this point, and keyboard shortcut is F. So I type F and enter. I look at the radius. The radius listed is 0 feet 0 inches, and that's fine. So I click on my line here and the line there. And then I'll continue, I'll enter, and I'll fillet this line segment with this one. I'll do the same thing on the opposite side. I'll right click and repeat fillet, select this line and this one, and then repeat it again. So I'll enter, select this line to fillet, and make sure you're picking down here as opposed to selecting up there. You'll see the difference. So you want to make sure that it's at this location. And then it takes us out of the command. I zoom out. I have that portion done. And then I can go back and look at what else needs to be drawn. And at this point, it appears that the top and bottom are the same, so I can mirror this information. And it looks like what I should have done was actually offset 1 inch and then another inch, because if you look at the mattress size, it's 6'4" from here, and then it's an inch out. So that's a mistake on my part, and I don't mind that. Let me just double check here. I'll do a distance check from here to there. So that is 1 inch, and it should have been an inch for the line and then an extra inch. And that's all right, because what I can do now is practice my stretch command. So I'm going to type S and enter, and I'm going to stretch right here, just that line and those endpoints. I will enter, and I'll stretch it from this point, and I'll take it out in this direction to the right, and a total of 1 inch. So I type 1 and enter. And then I will offset O, enter, a distance of 1 inch, enter, and that'll be this line segment out there, and enter. I'll do the same thing on the other side, only this time instead of the stretch command, I think I just want to go ahead and move it. So I'm going to type M and enter. I'll select the line, enter, and I'll move it from this endpoint out to the left, a total of 1 inch, and enter. Notice how it's different than the stretch command. So the 2 lines that I have here, I can use the fillet command, or I can select the line, activate it, turn on the grips, and then pick the grip point and connect the grip point to the end point. Tap the escape key a couple times. Select this line, shows me the grips, activate the grip, and then take it to the end point, and then tap the escape key. And I'll do the same thing with the line here that I did on the opposite side. I'm going to offset, so I type O, enter. It already knows it's going to be 1 inch, so I enter, and I select this line, offset it to the left, and enter. So that's what I wanted to have. So I misread my own drawing, and that's okay. these things happen. And it helps me to show you how to make some modifications as needed. All right, so now on the top, like I said, it's the same 2 inches. So it's a headboard, if you will, or just the part of the frame along the top, similar to the bottom. So I want to fix that. And what I can do is this. I can mirror all of the information down here. And when I do that, I'm going to have overlapping lines. So I'm going to take this line here, I'm going to select it and tap the delete key because I really don't need it. And then I think what I want to do, instead of having to pick 4 separate lines, I think I want to use the join command. So I'm going to type J, enter. I'm going to select all 4 lines using an implied window, which goes from left to right, and enter. That joined the 4 objects. They've been converted to one polyline, as it says in the command line. And then when I hover, you see how it tells me it's one polyline, and that's what I wanted. So now I can go ahead and use the mirror command. So I'll type MI, enter. I'll select my polyline and enter. And I'll go from this midpoint and I'll take it across. And since I have ortho on, I can just stop right here and click, or I could click out here because it's still giving me a straight line. I'll go ahead and give it a click. Erase the source object, no. And I have my mattress as well as the parts of the frame, and now I can continue. So the next thing I would like to do, if I go back to the drawing, is I'd like to drop in the information that makes up the pillows as well as the sheet. So all I have to do is offset some lines, and that's where I'm going to start. And I'm going to come right up here. Now, if I type O for offset and enter, and it's a 2-inch offset, so I'll type 2 and enter. And I select the polyline. Notice what it's going to do. It's going to offset all 4 sides, all 4 of those line segments. So I'm going to escape, and I'm going to show you, sorry, tapping the escape, that I can take this polyline and I'm going to explode it so that all I do is pick the one line segment, because I can join it afterwards. So I'm going to type X for explode and enter. I select the line, or polyline rather, and enter. And now it's down to its individual line segments. So from this point on, I can now go ahead and offset, enter, 2 inches, enter. I select the line, offset it down 2 inches. And then based on the dimensions, I can now pick this line and offset it down 1 foot 8, which is what it showed. And then select this line, offset it down 2 inches, and click and enter. So I have the line segments that I need. And now I look at the dimensions over here, and it looks like I have to offset the line in 5 inches and then 2 foot 4. So I'll minimize this, come back over here, and I'll type O for offset, 5. I'll select this line and offset it 5 inches in like that and enter. Now another thing I could do, I'm going to undo this, is I can use my object tracking. And I can draw a line, so I'll type L, enter. From this point, notice how I pause here for a second, finds the intersection. I start moving it over to my right, and as it's moving over, I take my hand off the mouse and I type in 5 and enter. And it gives me that line segment that I wanted. And then I can come down here. It wants to pick the endpoint, but I want to go ahead and track the intersection. So I pause there for a moment, and then I bring it over, and then it finds that intersection, and I click. And then I can tap my escape key, and I'm done. So that's one way to do it. And then I can offset 2 foot 4 inches. So I offset 2 feet 4. I select the line, and I take it over to the right, and enter. And then it's a matter of using the fillet command. Now, I'm going to erase the two lines here because fillet is straightforward. But I wanted to show you, if you don't want to go that route, I'll go ahead and just offset 5. I'll take this line, offset it over 5 inches that way, select it again, type in 2 feet 4, and it offsets, and I enter. And now I can use the fillet command. So I'm going to type F and enter. And the radius, again, the command line shows me it's at 0. And what I'd like to do is go with the M option for multiple. So I type M and enter. And then I can just go around. And if I had drawn the segment itself, I'd still be doing the same thing here. And then enter. And then I'll go and do my quick measure to make sure. 1 second. See if I have the right dimensions. 1'8" by 2'4". Yes. 5 inches over here. 2 inches along the top. 2 along the bottom. Okay, tap the escape key. And then I think what I'd like to do now is go ahead and join these line segments. So I'm going to type J, enter. I'll join all 4 and enter. I'll join these again, just like I had them before. So I'll type J, enter. I'll window this. And notice how it doesn't pick the line there from the pillow because that's already part of another polyline. So I go ahead and click, and then I enter. So I have my polyline back here, and then I create a new one there. And then what I'd like to do is basically just take this representation of the pillow and mirror it. So I'll type MI, enter, select the object, enter, and I pick the midpoint here, and then I bring it down, and I can stop right there, or you can go ahead and pick that midpoint since it's the same line segment, and click. Erase the source object, by default no, so I enter, and I have what I wanted. And now this line segment is a little bit long, so I'll come over here, and I'll type TR for trimming and enter. Now I can trim here, but then I also have to keep going and trim there, and that's all right. I can come over to the other side, and I'll just trim right here, and then it looks like I can also trim that out and enter. So I have that line segment, and now it's just a matter of, let me bring the example back, drawing another line and making sure that it comes down 8 inches from that endpoint. So a couple of ways to do this. One is to start with a new line. So I'll type L, enter. I'll hover right here. When it finds the endpoint, I'll slowly move my cursor down. I'll type 8, enter. And then I'll take it over, and yes, ortho is on, but if I click on the endpoint, it's going to draw the line at the angle, and then I enter. So that's one way to do it. I'll undo that. The other way is using the grips. I'll select the line. I will click on this endpoint, and now it looks like I can stretch it, but I want to use the copy option that you can see down there in the command line. So I type C and enter. And now it's going to make a copy, and I want to bring it down a total of 8 inches. So I type 8 and enter, and then escape. And then tap the escape key again until the grips go away. And you have yourself the bed. And this is the king size bed. And now it's a matter of putting in the end tables and the rug, and it doesn't matter what side I start on. And I guess since the dimensions are here, I'll go ahead and start on this side, and I'll zoom in a little bit closer to that so I can see those dimensions a little bit better. So that nightstand, it's going to be 4 inches away from the bed frame, and then it's a 2 foot by 1'4". So I'm going to minimize this. I'll zoom into that area. Oh, and by the way, it doesn't hurt to save the file at this point, so I'm going to type Control S to save it, and then I'll continue. So I'll type L, enter. And I'm going to use my object snap tracking, which is on, and I'm going to pause right here for a moment, and then I'll slowly move away from that endpoint, let it track the endpoint, and this will be 4 inches. So I type 4 and enter. And then I'll bring the line across. I'll type 2 feet, enter. I'll bring it down, 1 foot 4, enter. Take it across, and instead of typing the value, I'll continue to use tracking here. So I'll track this endpoint, bring the line down, and I can click right now because it has found that intersection. And then I can just come up here, and instead of clicking, there's an option at the command line, which is the close option. So I'm going to type C and enter. So it closes the line segments out. And then I'll type J, enter. I'll join all 4 of them like this and enter, and I've got my nightstand. And I can go back and check the dimensions, 4 inches away from there, 2 feet by 1 foot 4. I tap the escape key. And now I'm going to come over here, and what I'll do now is drop in the rug. But I'll go over to the other side because that's where it has the dimensions. Now this is 2 foot 8 by 1 foot 4, and this is an ellipse that you're going to draw. Now I don't draw ellipses often, so bear with me because I want to show you how you have to keep an eye on the command line sometimes, and I may even have to start over. We'll see. So it's 2 foot 8 by 1 foot 4. So I'll do it right here, and then I go to the Home tab, Draw Panel, and this is the ellipse option. So I'm going to click on the drop down. And it tells me that I can do it based on the center, or I can do axis and endpoint. And when I look at those options, I can see what it's letting me do. This one, it says that the first 2 points determine the location and length of the first axis. Okay, I'll give this one a try because I think this will be the length of it, which might be the 2 foot 8 dimension I'm looking for. So I'll click on that. I'll come over here. I'll give it 1 click. And then the next click, actually, I'm just not even going to click. I'm just going to type a value of 2 foot 8 and enter. And it looks like that's the option I wanted. And now it says, go ahead and specify the distance to the other axis. And that distance is 1 foot 4. So I type 1 foot 4 and enter. And it looks like that was a little too much. And that's all right because I get to introduce more options, more commands. So from here, I'm just going to select the ellipse. I'm going to give it a click, shows me all the grip points. And of course, I could edit the grip points here like this. And I will, because I can take 1 foot 4, half of 1 foot 4. Let's see, 12 and 4 is 16, so that would be 8. So I can type 8 and enter. And that changes it for me, which is great. But let me undo that. The other thing I could do, if you're interested, I have it selected, right click, go to properties. And this is a properties window. And this gives me all the properties of that selected object. And from here, you could see I have a major radius and a minor radius. So what happens if I change the minor radius here from 1 foot 4 to 8 and enter? That changes it right there. So if you want to, you can input the values here through the properties, or you can do it the way I did it. Or perhaps, now that you know how this works, when you go to draw it based on an axis and endpoint, you now know, like I do, that I can pick the first point and I can make this 2 foot 8. And then for the other axis, I thought it was the overall length, but it's not. I need to give it half the distance. I type 8 and enter, and that would have done it. So I'll go ahead and take this one, delete it, and then my properties window. Notice how if I hover over it, it opens. And that's because I have it set to auto hide. And there's a gear here. And if I click on the gear, it tells me that I can anchor it, and I will anchor it to the left. And then when I hover over that title again, it opens up. And then when I move away from it, it closes. If by any chance you are hovering on it and you accidentally clicked on auto hide, you'll know it because it will just remain there on the side. So I'm going to pick from the bars here on the side, click and drag it out, float it like this. And now notice it's not going to auto hide, so I need to turn that back on. Now it does, and then I can go back to my gear and anchor it to the left. Okay. Now my rug, I want to move it closer, so I'm just going to use the grips and move it up a little bit and then over right here. And then staying on that grip, just hovering over it. When it turns red, I right click. And can I rotate? No, I think I need to first pick it. So I'm going to click on it and then right click and rotate. And I have ortho on, so I'm going to turn ortho off and just rotate it a little bit in this direction. Tap the escape key. And I'll do the same thing on the opposite side. So I have my two objects. Remember, this is one polyline. So I'll go ahead and type MI, enter. And I'm going to use an implied crossing window, which means I click anywhere on the screen, and I know I have to go from right to left. So I click here. I take it from that point over to the left, selects both objects. I enter. I pick the midpoint of the bed here, bring that down. Ortho's off, but I can hold down my shift key, and then that will give me a straight line. And now I can click and then erase the source object, no. And then I could have released the shift key earlier, but I just did, so all set. And then I'll take this rug and I'd like to rotate it so it's going in the other direction. And then I'm going to click on this grip. And then this time, I'm just going to use the space bar, because the space bar, you'll see at the command line, it's toggling me. It says I can move it. If I press the space bar again, I can rotate it. That's what I want. But if I continue to cycle through using the space bar, I can scale it, I can mirror it, stretch it, move it, and then back to rotate. So I just want to rotate it like this. And I'm being careful not to click on any endpoint. So I'll just give it one click here and then tap the escape key. And I'm all set with that king size bed. I'll do a Control S to save the file. I'll go back to my example and I'm going to zoom out so I can see all of it. And then I'm going to zoom in to the twin size bed. And the twin size bed is, like I said, half the size of the king size. So I'm going to basically perform the same edits that I did with the 3-seat sofa when I converted that to a 2-seat sofa. So what I'll do is I will make a copy, and I'll go ahead and just come up here to copy this time instead of using the keyboard, just changing things around a little bit. Select the objects. I'd like to window all of the objects here minus the nightstand and the rug on the other side. So I've gone far enough. If I go a little further, it doesn't pick them, and that's fine. So I'll go ahead and click here. I do not want to select any more objects, so I enter. And then I'm going to copy them, pick a point out here as my base point, and I'll take it across. And if I want to, I can, keep it straight, but I don't need to. But I will, just to line it up, and I'll click right there. Okay, and then tap the escape key to continue. Now, this one's going to be relatively straightforward because it's half the size. The original bed is 6'4". This one is 3'2". So I know that I have to come in 3'2". So all I have to do is take this pillow, delete it, and then use the stretch command. It's a good way to practice stretching. So I type S and enter. I know it has to be a crossing window, and I know I have to use the implied crossing window. However, if I type C and enter, it will give me a crossing window no matter what direction I go. And I like that because now I can come up here and click And then I can come down here at the opposite end and give that a click and enter. And now I'm just going to select a point out here in space, move it to the left, and type in the value, 3 feet 2, and enter. And that gives me the bed size that I need, that I want. Now, you could go ahead and not use the stretch command. I highly recommend it though. And you could move lines, copy lines, offset, and all that, but this is relatively quick, and I'll just leave it at that for now. So I'll do a Control S and save, and I'm all set with the file.